Getting into the government can be quite challenging, but it can be made a lot easier if you use non-competitive eligibilities and certain pathways. Let's get into it. The first way is by using the Schedule A letter. You might have heard of this. It occurs when you have a physical, a psychiatric, or a mental disability. If one of those things apply, then you can go see a doctor, a nurse, a physician assistant, and they have a letter. They sign off on it and they check that you qualify for one of these type of disabilities. Now, you do not have to be specific. It doesn't have to say exactly what is wrong with you, but the doctor is acknowledging that you would qualify for this hiring pathway. Another way that you can be sure that you qualify is if you are currently receiving disability from the state or the federal government or from the Veteran Affairs. If you're currently being compensated by one of those government entities, then you more than likely would qualify for a Schedule A letter. And the good thing about this is you will actually have your own coordinator. So let's say you want to get into a federal agency, let's say Department of Justice. If you want to get into the Department of Justice, there's a website you go to, you select Department of Justice, and then you can click down and find a coordinator. Then when you find that individual, you email them your Schedule A letter and your resume, and that will help them place you into a position. Or if you find a position on USA Jobs and you know that you want to compete for it, you can send that job announcement number to the coordinator and ask if there's any Schedule A pathways. Now, this can open you up to an additional 2,000 or 3,000 jobs that currently have the disability icon on USA Jobs. But it doesn't stop there. Like I said, you reach out to your coordinator. There's a lot of jobs they do not advertise that you could be qualified for. Now, if you decide to use this, you have to understand if you're coming in non-competitively, more often than not, you're going to be entered into the accepted service. Now, after 12 or 24 months, that can convert to the competitive service, so just keep that in mind. The next one is by joining the Peace Corps. If you decide to join the Peace Corps, it's a 2-year commitment, and there's no age limit. You have to be 18, but it doesn't matter how old you are. You can be in your 50s or you can be in your early 60s, whatever it is, you can apply. And if you're wondering, if I applied to the Peace Corps, what are my chances? Well, the chances are about 33%. 33% of the individuals that apply actually make it. And they hire about 3,000 to 4,000 people every year. If you get selected, you're more than likely looking at going either to South America or Africa. You'll spend 2 years there, and I think it's about 3 months for training. And this pathway is non-competitive, and it is good between 1 to 3 years after you're done with your Peace Corps service. And the next one is the recent student pathway, which I think is one of the best ways that you can actually get in. Because this applies to people that graduate with a bachelor degree, or they graduate with a master's or an associate's, or even a certificate. A 12-month certificate, which is typically between 15 and 18 credit hours from a qualifying educational institute. You do that, and now you're opening yourself up to hundreds, if not over 1,000, of jobs that are solely there for the recent graduate. A lot of people that I talk to, they're in their 40s, they're in their 50s, and they're looking for an edge. They're not a veteran, they're not disabled, but they want some sort of edge when they're applying to the government. And this is typically one of the more common paths that you go down. You enroll in a certification program, knock out your 15, 18 credit hours, and then with that, you're able to start competing. Now, this isn't non-competitive. You're still going through the competitive process, but it does make it a little less competitive when you're applying to get into the government. The next way is by joining the military. Now, I know a lot of people are not interested in this, but just stay with me here, because if you do join the military, let's say you stay 3 years, something like that, you stay 3 years, you can qualify for the VRA, which is non-competitive appointment up to the GS-11 level. So what that means is there's a coordinator, much like the Schedule A coordinator that I talked about previously. Well, you have one for veterans also. And there's a website which is called FedsHireVets.gov, and you can go through there, click on the agency directory, and you can look at all the different point of contacts that you can email directly. You email them your DD-214, you email them your SF-15, and also your resume, and they'll help place you. You also have 30% disabled veterans, where you're going to be given plus 10 points, all right, on top of whatever you earn on your own merit. Because of your resume, you'll get an additional 10 points. And the disability route, just like the Schedule A, that is a non-competitive route, so you can get placed without having to compete. Now, one thing to keep in mind when I keep saying non-competitive, if there's a job on USAJob.gov, you still have to fill out that questionnaire. You still have to click apply, go through the same process. It's just that if they're using that pathway, they can take your name away from the pool, and then they can go through another process where they're trying to identify who's the most qualified. So you don't have to compete with everyone else. But there is no guarantee when it comes to these preferences. You can have veterans preference, and then you can have an individual with no veterans preference, and the other guy ends up getting the job just because he's more qualified. Your +5 or your +10, it didn't do enough in order to have you above another candidate. So you need to make sure that you're applying with a strong resume. You need to make sure that you're qualified for the actual job. Do not think just because you qualify for a certain pathway that you're going to have it easy and you don't have to work on your resume, because you're going to. The next way is by being married to a military service member. And this is what we call spousal preference. And you can use this once you're PCSing into a new duty station. But I have to advise you, do not get married to a military service member for the sole purposes of trying to get government employment, because that's not a good idea. There's also a lot of challenges that come with being a spouse to a military service member. A lot of times, people in the military, they have to pick up and move every 2 or 3 years. So it's really hard for not just the relationship, but for the family. If you have kids, things like that, you have to consider that there's already a lot of hardship on these type of individuals. And that's one of the reasons why the government decided to give them their own pathway. Now, if you don't qualify for anything that I just mentioned, that means you're pretty much left to open to the public. You have to apply for open to the public. But that should not discourage you, because looking on USAJob.gov the other day, half of the jobs there, 14,000 of the jobs that were there, they were open to the public, which means you, no matter what your background is, provided you're a U.S. citizen, you can start applying for them. So just have your job filter sorted and keep searching, keep applying, and don't give up. If that is a serious goal that you're trying to attain, you can reach it. If you just keep getting after it, you keep applying, you can actually reach it. I know it's discouraging, the first few times, the first couple of dozen times you might be applying and you keep getting rejection emails. Hey, I understand all that, but you can definitely do it. So if you've already been applying for government jobs, you might be interested to know that USAJobs.gov the other day, they posted a post on LinkedIn. And it was basically a website that shows people how their education can line up with different job series. So they line them up for you and they give you a little advice before you even start applying. If you want to know more information about that, then I want you to watch this video next. If you would like to see more videos like this, please click like and subscribe. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.